On tube check. Okay, welcome to the second tutorial for B-roll, and we're going to be taking a look at the OTS graphics that can be found on the server. So if you go into the Finder and connect to ShopVox 01, you can see on the TV Tech drive there's a main folder for Shawnee Extra. And then within the Shawnee Extra folder, and I'm going to go to the column view in Shawnee Extra, here we have all the different years. So you can backtrack and take a look at all the different news packages for each edition of Shawnee Extra. So Shawnee Extra 1, 2, and 3, SE 1, 2, and 3, for each year is kind of the folder system that we go with. So if I backtrack into last year, I can look at the first edition of Shawnee Extra. You can see the lower third template that we use, that everybody uses in their news packs. Here's all the news packages that were delivered, and this is the second round of news packages that were delivered, copied and pasted from the LaCie drive up to the server. And here's OTS graphics. OTS stands for over-the-shoulder graphics. And what we ask is that students find the best B-roll that they shot and cut it together in a short montage. So what I've done is I've taken a couple examples of OTS graphics and copied them from the server and dropped a couple of different styles of shooting. So I'm going to go through and just call things out and talk about them briefly. Here we have a close-up that fills the frame, so that's pretty good right there. Next one, you have an over-the-shoulder shot of action. So it's often good to have things that are moving and not just stationary. So here we have somebody paging through the script over the shoulder. Here it racked focus from out of focus into focus. You know, that kind of draws attention to, it's a camera sitting there, and it's kind of interesting. It grabs people's attention. Here, and it's Dutch angle, so it's kind of got this, the horizon line here in the background. That's considered a Dutch angle shot, and it's interesting, and it puts the audience through a window people would never be in, because most people that go to see plays are in the audience. So another interesting shot. Okay. In general, though, I think that some of this stuff is a little too wide, but I like the frame in the frame. I like the Dutch angle here. I like the smoothness of the pan. Some of this is a little dark. It was dark in the auditorium, so color correction is going to be an issue there. Moving on, this one here, a slow pan, showing the Smoothie King thing. This is taken from a standing perspective, maybe down on the ground at the level of Smoothie King, or dollied across instead of panned across might be interesting as well. Here, this is where we're starting to get better. So here's a close-up that's really filling up the frame, really showing detail as to what they're doing when they're sewing. Most people wouldn't put their head this close to see this. Here's a wide shot, a little bit too much headroom. And here's another wide shot at the end here, just kind of showing sewing, and this is kind of filling the frame a little bit more than what we saw in the last wide shot. Always think closer than wide. You only need a couple wide shots to show where we are. Okay, here's one that I think they did a really good job with their B-roll. So here's a close-up of a hand moving the T-bar, and then you're going to see in the next frame here, this is a really good dolly or crane shot. Real smooth and steady, real wide shot, really showcasing the room and the behind-the-scenes look of the room. Here's kind of a worm's eye view of the keyboard, another close-up / extreme close-up of the card reader. Here, interesting rule of thirds. Again, we're putting these third lines. The horizon line is on the third line. The subject matter of this here, the LDTV is kind of around the third line here. Here we have. It's a wide shot, but I still think it's got this horizon line on the third line. So again, this is a pretty well-designed shot. Here, a close-up, and it's like slowed down a little bit. Here we're racking into this is a new one. So, a slow panning close-up. This is much more interesting than if we were wide and saw the whole classroom, in my opinion. So again, think in the term of close-up. Here we have racking from out of focus into focus, and here it gets into focus, and then back here it starts to get in focus. Kind of cool. This isn't a one I chose because this was for the newspaper, and it was kind of hard to shoot B-roll for the student. So, it's a bunch of people in a computer lab typing. I mean, how interesting can you get? And they found stuff that was more interesting to shoot. So here, again, a little bit of racking and focus from out of focus into focus. Here, again, rule of thirds all over our subject, and it's kind of drawing our eye back through the frame. Again, repetitive things along the z-axis. Interesting stuff. You got some depth. It really shows the depth of the room. Here we got a slow pan, kind of extreme close-up / filling the frame of the newspaper. Okay, so that was an interesting one. Here, slow panning wide shot. Here we are, we're on a golf course. And then this is the stuff, the worm's eye. You're going to see a lot of worm's eye in the sports stuff. Worm's eye down low of the action. Here, the ball rolls right past the frame. Here we're kind of like right where they're taking a drive. So this was a really well done set of B-roll right here. These 3 shots back to back, and then a nice kind of establishing shot where we are. Okay, this one isn't done so well. What happened was this group went out. They didn't get any of the track. I guess this was it was like spring track, and they didn't get any of the events. They got a bunch of people in gym class. So bleachers are empty. Horizon line's kind of right in the middle of the screen instead of on the third. This is a very wide shot. In terms of interest, it's just there's nothing going on in the background. So zoom in. But here, we're on the bleachers doing a slow pan of people in gym class, not track. Here, this is better. So now we're probably on the bleachers, looking down and zooming in, cutting off, not showing the whole object. I think for whatever reason we want to always include the whole object every time we have a camera in our hands. It's okay to go in and cut things off. So close-ups that cut off part of the whole. And here, empty bleachers. Again, not the best set of B-roll there. Here, this was, for Chess Club, this was posed and staged in our studio. So you're going to see our studio in the background in a second. So here we got a light on the wall to dress it up a little bit, and depth of field, something interesting here, very close up, filling the frame. Here we're doing some camera moves on top of like extreme bird's eye. Here again, a little dolly shot going across. This was all set up in studio, and this was the only thing that was cool in the whole news package. In terms of B-roll, everything, the interviews were very well done. It's just, it was kind of hard to get in the way of the people playing chess, so they staged this, and it turned out really well. Okay, this one here, you shouldn't really include audio when you're exporting your over-the-shoulder graphic. It doesn't really matter because we're going to mute the laptop that plays it on the background monitor of the lead lines at the news desk. But here we start with a wide shot and some action. Somebody running, so it's catching your eye. Rule of thirds follows rule of thirds. They're on that top and right third line. And going here, our horizon line's on the third line, but we're choosing to be kind of worm's eye and showcase the grass and the depth of field of this is in focus, and this is kind of not as much. Blades of grass blowing in the foreground are pretty interesting right here. You'll see kind of this shaky stuff. Okay, here. Again, a little too wide. Wide, wide, wide. Here, this gets a little bit better, cutting off part of the hole. And now this shot, again, worm's eye, pretty cool. Here's what I'm talking about. Close up, filling the frame, shallow depth of field, interesting stuff. Here this is out, this is in, this is out. You're going to see a lot of these low angle shots. Interesting save by the goalie. Shawnee. Okay. So here's soccer. Again, grass, out of focus, in focus. This is a lot of kind of close-ups, low angle stuff. This is a different girls. This is girls soccer. The first one was boys soccer. Here we go to the live stuff here. Again, I think every time I see introducing the coach, that's good. But every time I see wide stuff, it's not as interesting as the other stuff. Close-ups that fill the frame, shallow depth of field stuff, low angle, worm's eye. Okay, so here we're. This was well shot. This was shot with the HVX, and you can kind of tell because it's kind of got that deeper blacks. So if you look through this, you're going to see close-ups, plus shots, shallow depth of field. Here we got a worm's eye, the whole band moving in unison. Pretty interesting stuff. Interesting gradient in the sky back there. Just well done. Okay, next one. Again, we got that low angle football in the frame. Here we got a little bit of action. Tilt up and go through the uprights. Here again, another close-up. Cutting off, not showing a lot of the outside surrounding. So more so close-up, cutting off top and bottom to get more detail. Again, something in the foreground, something deep in the background in focus. Pretty interesting. Out of focus foreground, in focus background. Here's the racking of focus from one to the bottom to the background. Interesting. Low angle down by the net. Maybe a ball hits the net and comes in the frame. That might be interesting. So, playing with what you got. Here, this is almost a point of view shot, like you were in the game. Okay, this one, close-ups, shallow depth of field. This is soft. I think this was shot with a T4i, or no, this was shot last year, so not a T4i. Maybe the HVX. I'm not sure how they shot this. They might have shot it with one of the Nikon D90s, but you can see that we're getting very shallow. Here it's in focus, but down here it's out of focus. Again, here it's in focus, back here it's out of focus. So close-ups that fill the frame of interesting objects are great to use in terms of B-roll. So I just wanted to do a little discussion and give you guys a little bit of commentary on what things are good and sometimes what's not so good. So hopefully we can use that and shoot some really good B-roll.